This is John with a Major League Baseball playoff race update as we go into September 4th. Calculations are from the free tool at playoffcomputer.appspot.com. You can make your own drama for your fantasy league there. The Playoff Race podcast on Spotify and Apple is audio only to enjoy my smooth tones while driving and goes a little bit deeper into things. In the American League, here are the latest odds for each team to make the playoffs. My usual note, these are based on a coin flip probability of either team in a game winning and not weighted towards a quote-unquote better team. The Orioles took 2 of 3 from the Diamondbacks, which was about as many wins as they need for the whole road trip they're on to be secure. The Rays lost 2 of 3 to the Guardians, but are still in good enough shape to be able to coast in. The Twins took 2 of 3 from the Rangers to continue their mission of not collapsing, which as long as they do that, they should be good. The Mariners lost 2 of 3 against the Mets, and that is not going to be good for them. They were able to still lead the wild card bunch, but their schedule turns decidedly more difficult now, and wins against the Mets was something they needed more of. The Astros gave back all the good karma they earned by sweeping the Red Sox by turning around and being swept by the Yankees to fall back to about a 76% chance. More importantly, that opened the door for the Blue Jays. The Rangers lost 2 of 3 against the Twins, which further opened the door for the Blue Jays, who managed to sneak out of Colorado with 2 of 3 wins versus the Rockies in the middle of their big chance to gain momentum. The Guardians took 2 of 3 from the Rays after doing the same against the Twins and Blue Jays to not completely go away, but time is running out. The Red Sox took 2 of 3 from the Royals, but time has already run out on them, barring a miracle of all miracles. Them and the rest of the teams are eliminated in the real world. The likely number of wins needed to get a wild card spot is right around 89. The Orioles and Rays should be able to stumble like a drunken sailor to at least that mark. Though the Rays do have a tough remaining schedule, so they do need to at least show up to the ballparks. After that, for the 4 teams fighting it out for either the AL West or remaining wildcard spots, there is not much room for error. I'll need to play about 500 or better to reach 89 wins. For our usual left turn to discuss the AL Central, 83 wins there is likely to be good enough. The wins just need to play around 500, while the Guardians do have a tough task to try to make up the deficit. But they will have a final chance to, with another series against the Twins up next. Probably need to sweep, as there just isn't too many games left to make up the deficit. Their schedule is a touch tougher than the Twins, which isn't going to help matters. Taking a closer look at the wildcard race, and as part of it, the AL West, with the assumption that the Orioles and Rays make it in, and obviously a team from the Central gets in. So that leaves us 3 spots up for grabs. The Mariners, currently leading the group, do have the hardest remaining schedule among the contenders, so that big 1-game lead might not hold up too well against the headwinds. Reds and Rays upcoming before Angels and Dodgers. Then after the A's, the huge finale of Rangers, Astros, Rangers. They'll likely need to play well between now and then to make sure that no miracles are needed at the end. The Rangers still have 3 left against the Astros and 4 left against the Blue Jays, in addition to those 2 big series with the Mariners. So things are definitely not going to be a stroll in the park for them. The series against the Astros is next up, which brings us to those Astros. After this huge set, Padres, A's, Royals. Easiest remaining schedule in the group. Hard to argue against them being in it up to the end, even with their recent troubles. If they manage to take 2 of 3 against the Rangers and then beat up on the Padres, A's, and Royals like they should, with the Rangers, Mariners, and Blue Jays all having games against each other, they might be in a position to sit above the brawl. The Blue Jays, though they currently sit a half game back, have a slightly better than 50-50 chance with the rest of the group beating up on each other, but they definitely need to take advantage of this week's plate of A's and Royals before that big series against the Rangers and then the brutal AL East finish. Unfortunately for them, like I mentioned, that 50-50 chance is based on a coin flip probability of who wins each game. If we look at the strength of schedule projections, it isn't quite as rosy. Here are those end of season projections from my strength of schedule formula and those from team rankings. Thanks to them as usual for letting me use their data. They're at teamrankings.com. As you can see, both sets only minor differences, but with the Blue Jays just barely ending up out. So they will need to steal a win or two from the store. The whole AL West, along with those last two wildcard spots, are looking like drama central, so anything is going to end up being possible. Over in the National League, the Braves are oh so close to locking up a berth officially, though realistically they did so a while back. They took 3 of 4 from the Dodgers, and my version of a magic number, which factors in opponents' schedules, is 5 for them to clinch a spot. The 3 losses the Dodgers took at the beginning of that series was their first 3-game losing streak since mid-June and in no way endangered their playoff chances. The Brewers won 2 of 3 from the Phillies after losing 2 of 3 to the Cubs to stay atop of the Central by a few games and are nearing safe territory. Those losses did keep the Phillies from completely running away from the rest of the wildcard field, but they still have a healthy advantage. The Cubs had a chance to join them clearly above the water level, but splitting their big series with the Reds kept them on firm footing, and right now being 3 games up in the wildcard race seems like being king of the mountain. The Giants were the big losers of the weekend, dropping 3 of 4 against the Padres, and they now find themselves in a 4-team tie for the last spot. Taking advantage finally were the Marlins, who swept a 4-game series against the Nationals to make them the big winners. They probably shouldn't throw the confetti just yet, more on that in a bit. The Diamondbacks didn't fare so well against first-place teams, losing 2 of 3 to the Orioles after being swept by the Dodgers to put a dent in their chances. And the Reds, after that split with the Cubs, kind of are the tail of that 4-team snake. All of them have roughly a 1 in 3 chance of postseason, some a little more, some a little less. I'll explain the statistical differences in a minute. Everybody else is relegated to spoiler roles. "85 wins has been holding rock steady as of late as the mark to generally aim for to get a wildcard spot. The Braves passed that a few games ago and thus are in realistically clinch spot, with the Dodgers only needing 1 more win to get to that point. The Brewers are closing into a position of being moved into that column, and anything resembling being close to 500 ball the rest of the way will punch their ticket. Ditto on the Phillies. While with so many teams fighting for the last couple of wildcard spots, the Cubs should just have to play even Steven to get there. After that, it's just going to come down to who makes the biggest run, but one of them will likely need to go around 15-10 to make it. Nobody is officially eliminated yet, but I wouldn't place any wagers on those teams in my realistically eliminated column, with the Rockies poised to be officially eliminated sooner rather than later. Looking closer at this wildcard race, the Phillies have a nice lead, but they do have a tough remaining schedule, at least compared to most of the rest of the group. But it is not brutal by any means and finishes with Mets, Pirates, Mets. And with that 5.5 game lead and the number of remaining games dwindling, anything other than a complete collapse will be good enough. Padres next, and then the big series against the Marlins. Other than that, they stay out of playing anybody else listed, which does give them a mathematical advantage. The Cubs continue their big adventures of playing against the competitors. Just finished with the Reds, now the Giants and Diamondbacks, with a bonus series later on against the Diamondbacks again. I mentioned this on the podcast. The Cubs are going to be a major piece to this puzzle. Do they put a big damper on the Giants and particularly the Diamondbacks' chances, or do they end up falling into the chaos? Or do they do just enough to stay out of the chaos and leave the rest to fight for that last spot? So yeah, next week may answer a lot of questions. The Giants are going to get their big chance, or another big chance, after that series with the Cubs with 2 series against the Rockies. Then a mini visit with the Diamondbacks before finishing with Dodgers, Padres, Dodgers, and hoping the Dodgers by that point are bringing in single A players to rest their starters. The Marlins have on paper the toughest remaining schedule of the group. And again, statistically, we are just talking like good odds of a 1-win difference between an easy and tough schedule by this point. Dodgers, Phillies, Brewers, Braves coming up. That's going to be tough. If they can hang in there, they finish Mets, Brewers, Mets, Pirates. The last 2 teams have relatively easier schedules, which could just continue clouding the picture. The Diamondbacks get the Rockies right now, and then those two huge series against the Cubs sandwiched around a set with the Mets. Lastly, just by a smidgen, the Reds. The good news for the Reds is they have a nice remaining schedule on paper. Tough matchup against the Mariners now, but then Cardinals, Tigers, Mets, Twins, Pirates, Guardians, and Cardinals again. So they are definitely a team to watch out for to make the needed run. Now, from a strictly statistical view, keeping in mind the odds shown are just based on that 50-50 coin flip of any one team winning a game, because the Reds don't play against any of these other competitors, their odds are slightly influenced by that. For example, the Cubs and Diamondbacks have those 7 games. One of those teams has to win 4 of those, and it is, pretty likely one of them wins 5 or more, and thus that makes it a big run for the Reds that they would have to do to keep up with. So the same thing that helps the Phillies from having to worry about multiple teams catching them, not really playing against the rest of the bunch, does make it slightly more difficult for the Reds purely from a statistical point, and that's why they have a slightly lower percentage to make the playoffs compared to the others. But where just one win or loss is going to scramble everybody's odds, things are literally still up in the air. Here are the National League projections from me and those from Team Rankings. Both sets, of course, show the same division winners with all of them having comfortable leads, and then Phillies and Cubs for the first 2 wildcard spots. My strength of schedule projections have a jamboree for the final spot between the Giants, Diamondbacks, and Reds, with the Marlins just out by 1 game, while theirs have the Giants taking the spot, but again by just 1 game. And obviously a margin of 1 game in predicting the future is worth about a grain of salt, or whatever the proper saying is to convey things are not worth betting on the outcome. That's it for now. Thanks again to TeamRankings.com. Again, my site is playoffcomputer.appspot.com. If you found this interesting, please do all the things that give me internet likes. If you really found it interesting and want to encourage my behavior, there's a couple options on the site, including going to the Playoff Computer page on buymeacoffee.com. Any amount is really appreciated. Enjoy your day.